We're here with Dave Cousins, and we're going to touch on a few different aspects of the mental game. Dave, can you give us some insight on, what builds a top archer, with the mental game?
Well, I think the first thing to do is when people talk about, mental game, what is it with my mental game? How do I better my mental game? Your mental game's got to come into play first and foremost in practice and training. That's when you utilize aspects of the mental game such as visualization.
Okay.
Learning to, in your mind, kind of like a daydream, to see the aspects of a certain task you're trying to learn, or to visualize and see yourself in certain situations so that you can commit to the manual dexterity functions of it with all that exterior arousal that you get when you're in a tournament. So utilizing the mental game through visualization in training to better learn a technique, to better make yourself more comfortable in a tournament situation. But also another often overlooked aspect of the mental game is a positive affirmation.
Right.
And a positive affirmation is a way to reward yourself for, a job well done or a task well carried out. And what that does is it works to grow self-confidence,
right,
and your ability to execute at a level that you've trained at under duress, under situations where there's stimulus, such as in a tournament. It grows a more positive self-image. Not only, yes, I have confidence I can do it, but I have done it. It is
right,
like me to do it.
Right.
That kind of stuff. So visualization, positive affirmation, that's in training. And then the commitment to that once you get into a tournament as well is even more important.
Right.
To be able to first and foremost get up there and commit to doing what you've done in training. Not to a performance standard, but to an application standard. To get in there and to turn over a new leaf and trust the system, to trust the steps you laid down in training, or you're faced with the moment to revert back to your old way of doing it. And, well, we know what that brings. You've
right,
established a standard with that. To step up in there and turn that leaf over and trust the process through that avenue of the mental approach of visualizing the goal, visualizing the steps you need to go through to reach that goal that you've been working on in training, visualize the outcome of that happening to the best of your abilities, praise yourself on it, get up there, and then therefore allow yourself to take that journey, and enjoy being in that moment. That, when you're up there and you're on it and your heart's pounding, just to enjoy that. If you can embrace and enjoy that moment of being there with one arrow in your quiver and a chance to trust this and to follow that journey and see where it goes, first and foremost, you're probably going to have a lot better results than you were, just going into it with no plan at all. And secondly, you're probably going to enjoy yourself too.
Now, do you have a routine you run in your head, like a shot plan when you step on the line?
I do, and I'll be honest, just like everybody else, I probably don't utilize it as much as I should. You do have moments where you're just kind of riding, it's like, well, this is what I do. I draw them back and I shoot them and they go in there. But there are times when you feel, more of that exterior, stimulation. You're like, okay, this is the last arrow in Vegas for a 900, or this is the first arrow in Vegas for 10 points, and then we need 890 more after that. You got to try to look at that and go, okay, this is what I want to do. I want to put this arrow in the 10. Well, what do I have to do to put it there? Okay, well, my sight's got to look a certain way. I've got to come back and I've got to load up the back half a certain way. I've got to be strong in the front half. I've got to wrap my thumb around the trigger. I've got to be aware of my timing window, the window of opportunity I have to make that good shot. Right. And I have to commit to that and stay in there and trust that. Boom. And a lot of times I'll see myself go through that process. And, before an arrow. And sometimes after an arrow, too. You may not absolutely execute that plan 100%.
Right.
But you got to go back and say, all right, what did I do well there? And what can I improve on? And use that as the building blocks. But, yeah, I'm probably just as guilty as any pro. We get comfortable sometimes, and you're just going along on cruise control.
Right.
We never really miss when we're paying attention. Yeah. But when we're not paying attention, you see those,
right.
But then, an onlooker will go, oh, God, we really got a hold, geez. And you're like, oh, man, that was terrible. And you're not only scalding yourself or worried it was terrible because of, where it landed, but the process, the fact that you missed a step and you kept going anyway.
Right.
That's what we're the most upset about. And people back there will be like, man, I wish my bad shots were that
That's
awful.
Right.
You're like, oh, man, you have no idea, how close we were to completely derailing there. But, yeah, you got to it's a commitment to the process and being in there and trusting it and enjoying the journey of it.
Now, what tip can you give, not only the new archer, but you know the guy that's been in it forever. He wants to up his game. You know what piece of advice can you give him that'll help him, you know, take that step?
I would say definitely task yourself with a new challenge. Pick something out, be it a fundamental thing, you know, that you're doing with your form, whether it's better your alignment, better your ability to, you know, handle and activate a release aid,
Okay.
better your ability to become more of a visual aimer than a physical aimer. And through trying to better those facets, you're bound to explore the mental game in greater depth than you probably ever have. Because you can't better any of those things or improve on an existing skill unless you take the time to stop and try to mentally reprogram yourself. And this is true. Enjoy that journey. Enjoy being on the line with that one arrow and thinking, man, this one arrow, I've got a chance. If you can enjoy that moment right there,
Right.
you know, results are bound to follow. And if not, I mean, at least you had a good time. You challenged yourself and maybe you learned something, and that's what's important.
Good deal, Dave. I appreciate your time.
Thanks talking with you guys. Hope you guys enjoy.